26, 9:30 a.m. Let us start off with roll call.
Johnson.
Present.
Viper. Here. Markham.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Rahman.
Present.
Long.
Here.
Biz.
Present.
Smith Charles.
Present.
Long.
Excellent. And Commissioner Riper is going to lead us in the pledge. If we could all stand.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. That takes us to item 4 on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes dated July 12th, 2023. I'll accept a motion to approve. It's moved by Commissioner Long, supported by Commissioner Johnson. Any changes or additions? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and prompt the vote on it.
Yeas and 0 nays.
Excellent, that motion carries. Thank you. Takes us to item 5, which is the approval of the agenda. As it is written, I'll accept a motion to approve. It looks like Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Spiz. And if there is no discussion, we can go ahead and prompt the vote.
Got 8 yeas and 0 nays.
8 yeas, 0 nays, that motion carries. Thank you all. Item 6 on the agenda is public comment, which is 3 minutes per speaker related only to items on the agenda. And this is an opportunity for anyone who'd like to speak to this committee to proceed to the front of the room. Anyone would like to speak to the committee? We are all ears. And seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment. All right, moving right on to our regular agenda. Item 7A is conduct, I'm gonna read it from my paper, is Economic Development, Aviation, and Transportation Conduct Environmental Study, EA Phase 2, T&E Species, Wetlands, and Runway, Tarmac Way? No.
Taxiway.
Taxiway.
You only know that because
Grant acceptance.
I'll move it.
Moved by Commissioner Weipert, supported by Commissioner Long.
we're on there.
And welcome, good to see you today. Feel free to begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. This grant is our typical Michigan Department of Transportation grant through, as our state block program through the FAA. And this is the second phase of an environmental study that has been ongoing out at our Oakland Southwest Airport. This additional work was prompted by some new regulations from Eagle regarding wetlands, and we do have wetlands out at the airport, so some additional study is required. This is in the amount of $137,000, 043. It requires a 5% local match, which is available through the airport fund. And we plan to get started on the work this fall.
Wonderful. Does anyone have any questions or comments? No. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and prompt that vote.
It's pretty easy to say yes.
I know,
Give us
that's what I
the
was gonna
federal
say.
money that we're entitled to.
Exactly.
You have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
8 yeas, 0 nays, that motion carries. Thank you.
Super, thank you very
Ms. Bush.
much.
But if she wouldn't have been here, we would have had questions.
No problem.
Item B,
Right, that's how
7B
it's
is Economic Development Participant Agreement for Governmental Entities for the 2023 My Career Quest Southeast event. I'll take a motion to approve that. Mr. Spiz, supported by Mr. Miller. And this is an interlocal agreement, and I believe Jennifer Llewellyn is here. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you. And we would love for you to chime in on what we have in front of us today.
Absolutely. Well, good morning, everyone. For those of you that I haven't had the opportunity to meet yet, I'm Jennifer Llewellyn. I'm the Manager of Workforce Development here at Oakland County and the Director of our Oakland County Michigan Works Agency. Back in 2018 and 2019, we hosted My Career Quest Southeast. It's the region's largest career exploration event for high school students. We are hosting the event again this year after a few-year pause on November 14th at the Suburban Collection Showplace in Novi. We lead this event, Oakland County and Oakland County Michigan Works lead this event on behalf of the entire region, and we'll be hosting 8,000 high school students from Oakland, Macomb, Wayne, Washtenaw, Livingston, and Monroe counties. They're transported to the event by their local high schools. And they spend a few hours with us to learn about careers in advanced manufacturing, construction, health sciences, and technology. There are 4 career quadrants. The students spend about a half hour or so in each one of those career quadrants, where they're exposed to about 30 different career exhibits. The exhibits are all hands-on and interactive. So for example, in our health sciences quadrant, the students will have the opportunity to perform a tonsillectomy on a mannequin. They will have the opportunity to draw blood from a fake arm and learn to be a phlebotomist. In our advanced manufacturing quadrant, they will do welding simulation and CAD simulation. In our construction quadrant, we have the operating engineers that bring their exhibits for the students to learn how to use a backhoe and a bulldozer. So it's very hands-on, it's very interactive, and we have generous participation from businesses, community organizations, cities, villages, and townships, community colleges, and universities who agree to spend that day with us and set up a really exciting interactive exhibit. This resolution before you is the governmental agreement. There are several cities that have participated in the past, including the city of Rochester Hills and city of Farmington Hills, city of Novi, as their police department has participated. Oakland University, OCC, and several other community colleges and universities from across the region are participating as well. So this agreement, the boilerplate of this agreement requests your approval so that we can secure them as exhibitors and sponsors for this event. And I hope that you will be able to join us. I know several commissioners were able to join us at the event in 2019, and we hope you'll be able to attend again on November 14th and see it firsthand.
Thank you, Jennifer. We'll start with Commissioner Long, followed by Commissioner Smith.
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. I remember this. I just didn't remember we didn't do it for a few years, but I guess that makes sense with COVID. Did we provide transportations to the schools that were not able to get transportation? Or did they get their transportation on their own? I thought we provided buses if they needed it, or was this event that did that?
Yes, the Board of Commissioners generously sponsored $10,000 in 2018 and 2019 to help offset some of the transportation costs for any Oakland County school districts that were having a difficult time affording the transportation to the event.
Okay, so that might,
that again.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say, so that might come up. I thought there was something, so you have a good memory somewhat.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is a great event. I have full support. So, and if you haven't gone, I highly recommend you go. So thank you, Jennifer.
Sure.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Rahman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I think it sounds like a phenomenal program. I've never been, but nothing but good things to say based on what I'm reading here. Just a few clarification points. So the total cost, up to $25,000 that we're looking to spend here, is that the full cost, or is that going to be matched with other parties, other groups? Just so I have some idea of kind of how much we're looking at for the full event here.
That's a wonderful question, Commissioner Rahman, and we'd love to have you this year. The cost for our exhibitors is very minimal. We obtained sponsorships for this event. So far, we've raised about $215,000. Our goal is between $250,000 to $275,000. So we have a little bit of a ways to go. So if you know any businesses or organizations that are interested in sponsoring, please let me know. We do not charge the exhibitors to participate in this event. They receive a table, 2 chairs, their exhibit space, and 1 electrical drop at no charge. However, based on their exhibit, they may have to purchase other items. So they may need more electrical drops, they may need some additional tables and chairs for volunteers, they may choose to sponsor. And so it was the recommendation of the fiscal services team to include that language in the resolution, that while we do not charge them, based on their exhibit, they may have other expenses that they incur.
Thank you. And then, I was saying, this is payable to, as I was reading the contract, it's BOCO, is that correct? So I just want to understand where the money is going, and it's primarily, as I read, for the space, I think it was like the chairs, the tables, electrical connections. So it's going primarily to Suburban Showplace and their company, correct?
Yeah, so Suburban Collection Showplace of Novi is who we have the contractual agreement with. They go by the term BOCO. We pay them for rental of the space, food for all of our volunteers and all of our exhibitors. We pay for pipe and drape, tables and chairs. There's another team that they have there called Art Craft Display that handles that. The majority of the funds that we raise for this event go to the actual expenses of Suburban Collection Showplace in Novi. We do incur some other expenses like T-shirts for our volunteers, lanyards. The cost for the students is pretty minimal, other than like our mailing and outreach to the students in the schools, sending them their lanyards. So the majority of the costs, I would say, I don't have the budget here in front of me, but I could get back to you. It's about $175,000 for everything that we need the day of the event at Suburban Collection Showplace.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Long.
I'm sorry, I have one more question. I forget, do you send an invite to all the schools in Oakland County, the high schools?
Yes, we send communication directly to the schools, and then we also partner with Oakland Schools, the intermediate school district, to ensure that private schools and other school districts receive the communication as well. Students from Wayne, Washtenaw, Macomb, Livingston, and Monroe counties are also invited to attend.
And then I was wondering if you could send maybe me and probably the others, like an invite that we could, after you send it, that I could send to, like, I know the contact persons at, like Wall Lake Schools, that they would for sure attend, maybe with a backup from us too.
Absolutely.
There could be some kind of,
registration for the schools will begin in August.
Okay, perfect, because I'd like to send it, because I know the contact, I'll send it directly to some of the contact people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller, followed by Mr. Wyper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, I always love this event. I just wanted to, are you looking for any more vendors to be there for careers, or do you have enough? Just so if we know individuals or companies or manufacturing companies that we could reach out.
Yes, we are still seeking additional exhibitors. Right now, our construction quadrant and our health sciences quadrant are probably our 2 strongest quadrant. We could add some additional exhibitors in advanced manufacturing. We're really struggling in the technology quadrant this year. We're looking to identify some EV and mobility companies that we could feature as part of that quadrant. So we're a little bit behind schedule in getting additional exhibitors. So again, if you know of any businesses or organizations that would be willing to feature technology occupations, and that's quite broad, we would welcome them to participate.
Okay, is there a certain deadline for that?
We're using September 1st as a deadline. We'd like it sooner than that so we can start the layout and some of the more in-depth promotion for the teachers and the counselors and the students, but September 1st would be great.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, just on that note, do you have a list of folks you already have? Or, because I don't want to look foolish talking to every business in Auburn Hills that's a EV mobility company.
Yes, we could send that over. I'll send when I send the school information over, I can send the list of companies and occupations that have been committed to so far, as well as our list of sponsors so far.
Sweet, thanks.
Thank you.
Anything else from Commissioners? Commissioner Wyper.
Are you looking for volunteers to help you?
We would love volunteers. We need about 225 volunteers to pull off this event successfully. So if you're volunteering, I'll follow up with you directly on that.
Okay, November 14th, huh? Okay.
Yes.
Anything?
Yeah, it's a great event, so.
Thank you.
No one has to worry about parking. So that's another nice thing to have. Okay, well, let us go ahead and prompt the vote for this item.
It's a 7 o'clock EV.
Oh, you're already in November, okay.
Oh,
You have 8 yeas and 0 nays.
Yes, that motion carries.
Do you mind if I just ask one more question?
Sure.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just because this is a regional event, does the event rotate among the counties, or is it always at Novi?
We have hosted it in Novi for 2018 and 2019. It works out actually ideally for the region because it's centrally located and it has the parking, the high ceilings that we need for the equipment, and it's our most affordable choice. We had looked at, I still call it Kobo. I know it's not the correct name for it anymore, but we had looked
Dating yourself,
there
me
as
too.
well. Yes. So we anticipate that it will be there into the future. There are other Michigan Works agencies across the state that host the event as well. So there's a My Career Quest in Grand Rapids, Traverse City, Saginaw, and I'm missing one, but there are several My Career Quest events across the state.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Jennifer, and we're looking forward to more on this.
I can go at 5.
Look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
All right, item 7C is Economic Development, Oakland County Transit Division Agreement between Oakland County and People's Express for local public transportation services. I'll take a motion. Commissioner Long, Commissioner Whiteford. And we have
Can't turn your head.
Lil Feng is the only thing that's coming to mind right now. Kristen, thank you. And Eli, I believe? Awesome. The floor is yours.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Eli Cooper. I'm the recently hired transit manager working with the county. And it's my pleasure to present this information to you this morning, seeking your approval. So when the millage was adopted, we had 4 partner agencies that were transit providers, SMART, Western Oakland, Northern Oakland, NOTA and WOTA, as we refer to them in the business, and OPC in the Rochester area. There were 2 large parts of the county, the Southwest and the Northwest. Okay. This animation is always a challenge.
Yes.
And so what we're doing is seeking your approval to fill in one of the areas that was not included as a agency or area that had a service provider, and that being the Southwest group of communities. It's not that they didn't have service. As individual communities, each one of them did have an agreement with a provider, but that it was more local transportation, not what we're looking for at the county. So People's Express is a carrier that provides this form of demand responsive transportation in adjoining counties, as well as in these communities. They have historically provided service to the 7 communities that are being considered as the service area. And what you can see is that it's a mishmash of colors on the map, and that if you're in one community, your ability to get to another community is limited based on the current arrangement. So in the context of working through a process with the local government representatives, we had several commissioners also engaged with us in the deliberations that we had to hammer out agreement with both People's Express as well as to have the support of the local communities. What we've tried to do was find that, if you will, consensus. I don't want to say it's unanimous, but I don't know that there's anybody who has any issues with the provisions that we've bringing forward. The important piece is that if all goes well with the board votes, that we would see a major change in service starting on September the 1st. And that one of the trade-offs, if you will, from the local governments, believe at your last meeting, there was a local reimbursement item and several of these communities were participating in that program. The good news is the trade-off for them is they won't have to go through that process because they're gonna be receiving support from the county through this agreement that we're gonna have. So this is a lot quieter of a map than the People Express one where we had all the different colors. There's a service area, which is the dark purple line that circumscribes the majority of the image, running from 23 on the west, 59 on the northeast road, geography so that the boundaries can be easily described by the providers and understood by the public. And that within this area, if you are a resident in any of the participating communities, you'll be able to contact People's Express, request a trip, and we'll be able to travel anywhere within that driving boundary. A couple of things that are unique about the People's Express agreement that we have not structured in the agreements with the other providers. One, there's a significant health facility south by southwest of this area in Ann Arbor, the University of Michigan Medical Center, and that they do carry a number of residents down to that area. And the issue is it's outside of the driving boundary, but the service is still necessary and People's Express is willing to provide that connection. And what they've done historically is had a fee for service beyond the driving boundary for the distance between the southwest edge of where a trip would leave the quote-unquote travel boundary down to the medical facility and back. And then similar to the fare structure, there are differential fares for those special group elderly and veterans and the like than the general public, which is another key feature of this particular service agreement. I know part of what we have with the NOTA WOTA OPC is that they are focused primarily and if not exclusively on specialty transport services. People's Express is willing to operate in an open door manner so that any member of the general public can call and reserve a ride on this service. The difference that they will experience is they will experience a full fare that's currently been negotiated with all the parties at $4 per trip. And that would be twice the $2 per trip that an eligible discounted elderly disabled veteran trip would be. So this is going to be a real learning experience for all of us. What I mean by that is our intent as a county is to provide this countywide public available transit for all, and that we'll be able to gauge the interest of the general public for this form of transportation over the first 4 months of this agreement. And so I think it's important, to note that in that not only are we increasing the ability of those who currently have local service to a more sub-regional service, but that we are also dipping our toe into the water with regard to meeting all of the needs.
Can I ask a question before you go on?
Sure.
With that map? So everybody knows I'm from Novi. So what you're telling me is somebody in Milford can call up PEX, People's Express, and get a ride to 12 Oaks Mall, which is in Novi, and back.
Correct.
And they can get a ride to Providence Hospital, even all the way down to the Hilton at 8 Mile and Haggerty is inside that gray area.
Correct.
They can all get rides there, but nobody in Novi can call this up and get rides out to Milford or Lyon Township because we have the smart credit reimbursement is all that we have. This is not on you. I'm just expressing my frustration that we're still not part of the system that surrounds us in any way, shape, or form. And, you know, I lay that on the management of my city, that I've lived with this situation for many years, but I don't like this map very well.
Well, and I appreciate that, and please know that we as staff have reached out to the city. The city had contacted us. In the beginning of the year, they had significant concerns of congestion affecting their ability to deliver the local services they provide within the community. We did connect them with the WOTA staff at that time, and they initiated a conversation. But for a variety of reasons, including which the congestion and delay wasn't as bad as they thought, those conversations broke off. The good news for the city of Novi, as you may be aware, that working with SMART, we are extending fixed bus route service into the city, so residents will be able to engage in regional transportation with SMART, but that we maintain optimism and hope that as these agreements come together in with the carriers like People's Express and WOTA, which is in Walled Lake just to the north, that they may see the advantage of joining in with one of these larger agreements and providing that enhanced mobility for their residents.
So the chair wants to recognize Long and Rahman, and then I do want to also identify that Commissioner David T. Woodward is here and
Yes,
he is
ma'am.
acting as
It's not even on there. She's good.
officio.
She's good. She knows it from the other thing.
There you go, Chris Long, the floor is yours.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if I wanted to wait though until he was done because I just wanted to thank, and I'm sure Ajay and Phil too, we'd spent numerous hours at meetings at Commerce for the local 7 communities on this agreement with People's Express, and I'd like to thank Eli and Kristen and the team, the other couple that were there, and I'm sure they agree, but a lot of them were hesitant and stuff, but I think they came out of the end with this agreement feeling a little better about mass transit and what, you know, I mean, I think they realized we had to do something because it passed, you know. But I think they are feeling a little, I mean, at the end of those meetings, I think they were much more comfortable with, since you worked with them so well. So I appreciate that. Like I said at the last meeting, Kristen worked to get all their SMART credits back and couldn't believe SMART wouldn't even return like emails and stuff for their credits. So Kristen did all that within a month? She's a miracle worker. The communities were so glad. I mean, they're getting their credits and stuff, so they're kind of caught up on that, moving forward. And I think just all those meetings helped the local municipalities not feel like it was so much of a takeover from the county of their local transportation. So I appreciate you. Ajay set up a lot of meetings and Phil was there, all of them. I think we were almost there, almost all. I missed one, I think, but I appreciate it. So thank you.
Yes, and if you have something else, just let me know.
Yeah, that's it.
We'll go over
That
to
was kind of the end
Commissioner
of the one,
Rahman.
but since I was called on, I talked.
Yeah, kind of the same thing. I'll speak at the end, but just
Sure.
quickly to echo
Yeah.
what Commissioner Long said. I mean, there was a lot of time and energy invested in this.
Yes.
I mean, this was not an overnight, hey, let's just throw some maps out there and see what sticks. There was probably at least, I don't know how many iterations of this we went through and how many back and forths we went with the 7 CVTs. To Commissioner Markham, you know, I think part of the reason this first took off was all of these communities have been working with People's Express for several years. And they've expressed continued interest to keep that service and develop upon that, to incorporate it with what we have now with the transit millage. To Mr. Cooper's point, I know we have previously had conversations with Novi as well. Novi continues, as you well know, to sort of live on their island. And they're insistent that, hey, look, we're happy with what we have, leave us alone, don't touch us. In fact, I even spoke with the Mayor Pro Tem last week. he's still insistent that he thinks this whole thing is not gonna work and, doesn't want any part of this. So it sort of is what it is. For the 7 communities that are represented, which are largely in Commissioner Whiteberg, Commissioner Long, and my districts, I think they're really happy. I think we've come a long way. I think from where we first started and everybody was very apprehensive, many of these communities really weren't buying into the public transit. But now that we've sort of put this together and incorporated this to hopefully dovetail into the greater picture of what SMART looks like, everybody's walking away feeling much better collectively, I think, with the situation. So, and again, I just want to echo Commissioner Long, thank you so much for your time. Sarah as well has been hugely instrumental, so we really appreciate it. So thank you.
And I guess Commissioner Markham, I just wanna give back, we are working to pull a meeting together with all of the stakeholders, and we'll certainly make sure that you're on that invite list. Cause we wanna make sure that you, the city, People's Express, folks from WODA, all, even SMART, we wanna just have everybody in the same room and just discuss this a little bit further, and hopefully we can work out an agreement where we can untangle some of the transit web that's in the city of Novi.
Well, I'd really appreciate that because it's an egg with a shell about that thick that we really have to keep poking at.
Keep working, Gwen.
Yep, but we'll make sure to invite you to that meeting.
Yeah, and I'm gonna start taking it, because I am a senior, and I am going to start intentionally taking it, because I'm told by residents that it takes, where our Mayor Pro Tem says it's a very good service, I'm told by residents, I had to wait 3 weeks to get an appointment. So there is a disconnect here, and I really appreciate that you're not giving up on us, so please make sure Commissioner Rahman and I are in the loop. Thank you.
So I have ex officio Woodward to speak, and then Commissioner Spiz, then Commissioner Johnson.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So if Novi said, we will let our community credits go to this, could they be part of this?
Their municipal credits?
Yeah, I think, is that the only thing that stops them from joining?
So what's nice about
Let's crack
this is
that egg.
it's, the service agreement only goes through December, the end
No,
of December. So we could easily add them for 2024 and then get their municipal credits, signed over to People's Express.
Right,
So yes,
so, I mean, okay,
Even
this is
Gwen.
like, so, I mean, this is like, and I really do appreciate the team that's been sitting down with CVTs, I've talked with commissioners. The constituency that needs to be served is not the CVT, it's the people that live in the CVT. And there are some that public leaders, and while I assume best intention, there's just a disconnection from what's reality on the ground. And we need to be creating these opportunities, and so I think communicating to the wonderful people of Novi to say, if you're public leaders, just sign over these CVTs, you can get access to all these services. And the people who stand in your way are these. And just, to nudge them to take action, because the reality is that the service reach here is just much better and much further than what an individual locality is. And I get that how this has evolved over time and became a fragmented system, but now we have an opportunity to reach beyond that. The second, I guess, question would be, since, we do get some reach into like the Highland, White Lake, and other areas, because there's destination points that people need to go. Is there a way to the partnership between like the a WODA and a People's Express, that either it's like, okay, can you grab this person here? We'll grab your we'll be working together, because at the end of the day, it's about moving people. And the public leaders, I certainly want them to be engaged in all this, but I actually happen to know someone up in Highland, which I think is just south of M59. Has a special needs son that tries to go to some skill training in Northville. And this would work if there was a way that a People Express, WODA hybrid. And I realize, we're gonna have to kind of figure some of this out. But from a capacity build out point of view, has there been a conversation there? So if you're in the gray area, the Oakland County portion is what I'm centered on, since we all pay into the millage, that people can be tapping into this, especially if there's a vehicle there. The thing I don't want to ever happen is that a vehicle's sitting there in Highlands and says, I'm sorry, we cannot pick you up.
Can't cross the line.
We can't, hey, we're all paying for this, so I can get on that bus.
So a couple of responses. First, I'd like to introduce Evelina Taylor from People's Express, who joined us as the meeting was underway. that it has been trips that have been served by providers, whether it's WODA, People's Express, that don't sit specifically within the colored areas on the map. So if there's somebody who has a trip need, my suggestion is either they contact me directly or if they contact one of the operators. And we should be able to accommodate, if it's a little further, because these operators are, as we are, interested in serving the riding public. There isn't a person that's not in this specialized transportation world that doesn't have a passion for the work that they do. On what lies ahead, it's gonna be very interesting, and again, I wanna give credit where credit's due. SMART has procured a new dispatch software that they're gonna distribute to all of the providers throughout the region, including all of Oakland County. That's gonna put all of the trip scheduling on the same platform. So a person can go in, identify where they wanna travel, and then depending on if there's another operator nearby, the opportunity to quote unquote schedule that in a more efficient manner will exist. And it might also enable some of the gaps to be closed because operators are gonna see where trips are coming and going. So I think there's technology, there's more coverage area, there's a willingness of the service community to provide service. I think we're in good shape, but we still have a lot of work to go. It's far less than where we want to go in terms of countywide mobility. And that's the last piece. In the coming year, there's a coordination going on between NODA and WODA in terms of trying to align their services. And there's a concept called hubbing, where a facility is created and that you might come from the west trying to get to the northwest, and what'll happen is there'll be a meet of the buses, but it's not like in February you wanna go out of one vehicle and wait in a parking lot for another vehicle to come, but there's a facility and there's arrangements that need to be made, as well as the technical aspects of making sure that that is a seamless transfer. So these are the kinds of issues that are in front of us, but they're all, if you will, framed, they're on the page, and we're gonna be trying to address them as time and opportunity arises.
Thank you, Eli. We're gonna keep moving here. I see Commissioner Spiz, followed by Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Eli. Pleasure to meet you. Question relative to Novi. Since everybody, first off, I'm glad to see that we're adding People's Express to this because people in the entire county are paying for a service that some communities are not getting yet. So the sooner we get the whole entire county covered with some level of service, the better. So my question, based on Commissioner Markup's question on Novi, and I think in 2 slides previous, you had 1,850 riders targeted to hit per month. If Novi was added, how high would that number go up to, roughly?
I'm not gonna venture a guess because I haven't really looked at their ridership statistics. I know they have a fleet of half a dozen vehicles and that they're carrying several hundred folk.
Okay.
But it's one of the challenges, should they choose to participate, what is the disposition of their service, their fleet, and how does that enable whichever provider it is in order to have the resources necessary to provide service to their ridership. So it'd be drivers, vehicles, right? Those are all questions. The good news is currently they have a fleet, they're meeting at some level some of the demands, and that would likely be part of the conversation if they were to be folded in this way or that way.
Thank you for that. Because the reason I'm asking, because if you calculate the fee for People's Express, the cost $1 million plus at $1,850, that's almost $48 a ride at that rate. So if you add Novi into that, brings that number down, which makes it a lot more economical. Because right now, because people look at that, they're kind of like, holy crap, I get an Uber, I get something else for that fee, which, they're already paying for this. So we want to make it as economical as we can from all aspects. So that's why, I will talk to the Mayor Pro Tem and see if I can help influence that.
Appreciate that.
No problem, because everybody's paying for it. I understand, but I don't understand their argument, right? And another question, which we could probably have offline, because I don't want to take this down a different path and a different rabbit hole, relative to the software from Smart, and they're gonna try to roll it out to everybody else, I have questions. They're gonna charge a fee for that, is it free? Is everybody gonna be required to use it? Cause can see some of those agencies say, no, I'm not gonna use it because I have my own, I like my own. Getting people to buy on is always difficult when you talk softwares. I like the idea, but you don't need to answer it, cause to me, it's gonna take us off into a rabbit hole. And then I'm really eager to see a future plan. Some of the things you talked about with the hubbing stuff, I think is great, but I wanna see the bigger picture once we get there. So, thank you, I'll stop talking.
Thank you, great questions. Commissioner Johnson?
No, I mean, I agree with a lot of those points. I'm excited, and I know that you have half a slideshow left to get through, so sorry. Could we go back to the, I think 4 slides previous, the multicolored chart of the, no, one more back. Yeah, that one. All right, so just a few questions. One, Walled Lake. How does Walled Lake fit with everything? Because they're part of WODA, but they're inside the PEX zone, but WODA doesn't touch PEX, except that it does because Walled Lake is part of it?
So again, don't have the material here in terms of the WODA driving territory. So obviously, since Walled Lake's within their service area, their driving boundaries are larger. And so they fit in that way, that they have a contractual relationship. They're part of the WODA organization. They receive service. And, when their residents call for service, it rings in the dispatch office in WODA, and they are, there's gonna be a lot of vehicles, if you will, People's Express and WODA vehicles that are gonna crisscross, and that's where the future with this integrated software will enable us to find more efficiencies, which, and I didn't necessarily get to cover it, but there's still, even with the People's Express, a 3-day advance reservation. Once this smart software is deployed and it includes an in-vehicle system, there's gonna be an opportunity for real-time boarding, meaning that if you're looking for a trip this afternoon, the system will know everything that's already scheduled in advance, and they'll be able to say, hey, we can pick you up at this time, can you travel at that? And so there will be more flexibility coming, but again, it's all waiting for the rollout and technology. It has sometimes what they call bugs.
Yeah.
So we'll wait and see how that works, but I think the future is brighter.
Awesome. Related to that, what after this software are like the remaining obstacles to like true interoperability among all of these partners?
Well, we start to get into some of the basics like fare and transfer. So the fares are being quote unquote rationalized or normalized across the operators. But what if you're going from one zone to another zone? So those are administrative details that we're gonna work with the operators because it's gonna affect their vehicle availability, the cost of delivering their service. And the good news is with the millage, we have the resources to facilitate that conversation to get to a conclusion. But there are a series of administrative details, the physical transfer locations themselves, if they're on private property, do we have agreement from the owners, et cetera. All of these and more will be coming back to this committee and others over time.
Cool.
We're gonna continue to work with NODA, WODA, and, well, probably not OPC, but NODA and WODA for sure, so that they can begin to expand their services to the general public. And then also expand into that northwest portion of the county that's still gray. Because those local providers, they don't offer general public, which is one of the nice pieces about People's Express, is that they do. So we don't have 100% coverage in the county right now. We do for some of our vulnerable populations, but the general public can't get a ride if they're in Holly right now.
As someone who lives in that older person's commission area, I'm very keenly aware of that, age discrimination. But no, I mean, like that is a great thing about PEX, and I'm really excited about that. This is my closing thing. I have grown up loving 1,000-piece puzzles with my family, and I know that when you open the box, you can't flip it out and have a completed puzzle there. So I appreciate the time that it takes to build a big puzzle. I appreciate that when you're building a big puzzle, everyone kind of has their fun little area that they start with first and they do their thing, and then eventually the family members merge their pieces together, and I'm happy to see that our puzzle is beginning to take shape.
I wanna come
Without his house.
Very
And they don't fight when they do the puzzle, just without fighting.
Thank you, Madam
So
Chair.
the way I see it, the slide number 6 is the last of this particular motion, they were kind enough to combine the slides. So the next portion are to speak to the municipal credits. So if you wanna just head to slide 6, so we can make sure we laid our eyes on that one, which is here.
Right.
And then if there's no other questions on our current agenda item.
Yeah, just a couple of brief words on the slide.
Yes.
That the agreement includes both operating and capital provisions. So what I had mentioned earlier in terms of Novi and with People's Express, although they have a fleet that serves the current micro areas, the idea that there are gonna be more and longer trips, there are 8 vehicles that are part of this agreement so that folks not only will have vehicles in order to make the trips, but they're gonna be hopefully shiny new vehicles that'll be providing the service. And that we have included, as was mentioned earlier, there's the 7 communities that have currently worked with People's Express. They're willing to sign on as long as they have a vehicle. And I don't mean a vehicle to drive, but a mechanism to communicate both directly with us and with People's Express. And we're going to be facilitating ongoing quarterly or more frequent meetings if necessary to address any issues that may arise. So those are the key points on this slide. And at this point, thank you, and any questions?
Commissioner Miller.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm on this team because everybody took all my other questions. Which is good.
That's good.
The one question I had is there an issue with getting drivers? Not the driver you were talking about, actually, drivers.
Well, and I think it'd be best if it's permits the chair for.
Yeah, I can.
Just give us your name.
She thought she was gonna sit.
So my name is Evelina Taylor. I'm project manager at People's Express. And in terms of driver, getting them hired and trained, we have a thorough onboarding process and we have a dedicated team to get it. I don't know if you guys are aware, we've recently started doing paired transit with DDOT in the January of this year. And that required a huge startup very fast with many drivers and many vehicles. And so we kind of have some expertise in that area and lessons learned from that experience that we're able to take for Oakland County. So we're definitely working on it. We already have a team kind of making plans and executing them as we speak.
Thank you. I have another.
Yes.
More of a statement, just got back from NACO and we actually got an award for the transit education campaign.
Nice.
Nice, yes. So that speaks to this, yes.
One of these, that's what we're doing.
That's right. It's the team, right? It's the whole county. We got it done. That's it.
Any more thoughts on this? I see Commissioner Woodward and Commissioner Rahman.
Yeah, and I'll make this pretty quickly. So in total, to service this area, I mean, I see the 8 new vehicles. How many vehicles are available to service the purple zone?
I think we currently use between 7 and 9, depending on if it's high peak or off peak hours, and we're looking to add that additional 8 to our services. What's really nice about our fleet is we have a diverse fleet between cars, minivans, transit vans, small buses, big buses. So we can kind of fit the needs of the people, and we oftentimes will send different vehicles out based on what's needed.
Right. And then from a funding perspective, are we using our public dollars to leverage, whether it's state matching funds to help support this or federal matching? How are we doing this? Or are we jumping right now with this and figuring that out?
So
when I'm talking about like local bus operating money, opportunities to match with our federal, with our millage levy dollars, or drawing down capital.
So this is a peek ahead for the next item, which is the municipal credits, which are state tax dollars. But I think what I can say is that in terms of negotiating with the provider, they need to have vehicles and need to have fuel, so they need resources. So we've committed for the operating cost. The provisions in the contract allow for the county to receive credits for those intergovernmental funds. So there's gonna be federal transit 5310 dollars that will flow back through this contract back to the county. The state LBO funds, should they be secured for these services will again be credited back. The municipal credits are being assigned from the local governments to the operator, and again, that flow of those funds will all be credited. So the answer is yes, we are leveraging the county funds or resources with both state and federal, and then we'll continue to be exploring whatever opportunities there are for innovative, creative, and other people's funding.
So from the $1 million or so for this total thing, do we have a general idea what maybe the net cost is? I think it gets a little bit more to, like the net cost of the millage, to what Commissioner Spiz was saying, like in terms of like the cost per ride, which for the record is expensive. I mean, it just is. And having been on Uber and Lyft the last few days, it's more expensive than this per day.
Yeah, they raised it, it's a lot higher than.
So without trying to, get down into the right of the decimal point, for example, the LBO funds, local bus operating, are around 30% in urban areas, closer to 40% rural areas. So I would say that when we look at the 89,000 between the municipal credits and the operating, it will be maybe half will be ours. The capital dollars, at least for the initial purchase, those will be all millage dollars.
Commissioner Rahman.
Two quick questions. One, I think in one of our previous meetings it came up, we do have the $4 fare and the $2 fare. Is it going to be a problem for the seniors, veterans, disadvantaged, and how do they qualify, or is there a process in place already so that they get that automatically, or is there something that they have to prove, for lack of a better word?
So our our process we always had in the past is we don't want to create any more barriers or obstacles for people to utilize our service, and we never want to get into like HIPAA laws of asking people questions that we shouldn't be asking. So when people say like have a disability or have a walker or cane, we give them the discount. Our drivers are really good if like someone calls in and we realize they do have a cane or walker but it wasn't in the notes, the drivers can communicate that back to dispatch and we can then get them the discount going forward. We are working with the other providers to come up with some kind of like universal system though, because now that we added low income, like that definition and threshold should be universal across the county. So we're gonna be working at the coordinated provider meetings to kind of determine that, and if it's just gonna be a question or how do we prove that, there's still logistics to work out on that side.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think that's a great thing. I just want to make sure that the system isn't possibly abused. Again, I don't know enough about how it all operates, but as long as there's some checks and balances in place. And the second question, to Chair Woodward's point, about Novi, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but in our previous discussions, we talked about, capacity. Can you handle the 7 CVTs as they are, and you've given us every assurance that you can. If time comes down the road in the near future, then we look to expand to a Novi.
Yeah.
Which, I just want to at least have that thought process in place. And it's not to say that it's going to happen, it may never happen, who knows? But if, that conversation happens in the near future, I at least want to be prepared for how we're gonna handle that, do we have the capacity?
People's Express definitely has the capacity. We're actually more than eager to take on Novi because we said like might as well complete our little square, and because we are taking the CVTs into Novi, it's more cost effective because we're already in Novi to pick up their residents. So that's why it makes sense. We're in and out of Novi all day long. It's a shame that we can't pick up their residents. So we're actually more than happy and would love to be on those discussions with Novi to get on board.
Thank you.
All right.
I get this. One of the question is like the number question. So the fare amount seems slightly higher than the fare in the other commuter. Or is it the same, or?
So the $2 is the discounted fare for the specialized. The general public is for $4.
Yeah.
And the
Got it.
others
So it's the
don't
same.
offer general.
Perfect, okay, got it.
So,
Not yet.
not yet.
We had to work that number down quite a bit.
Yeah, perfect.
That's a conversation for a different meeting.
Sounds like a plan for a different meeting then. We'll go ahead and prop the vote for this particular item, which again is item C.
We have 9 yeas and 0 nays.
that, motion carries. Thank you very much. And I'll entertain a motion to open up Economic Development Transit Division municipal credits for local public transportation services. Moved by Johnson, supported by Rahman. And we're back to you, Eli and company.
You want me to take this or you got it?
If,
I'll take it.
well, you can
I'm
handle the animation because that's the part that gives me the fits.
Yep.
So, in the world of transportation finance, there are, as Commissioner Woodward identified, there are a variety of different funding sources. This one in particular is the municipal credit that is facilitated through Act 51 at the highest level. So it's state revenue that is collected and it's distributed to the state DOT from the gas tax registration fees. They in turn make it available to a designated recipient in the major urban areas. So these state dollars flow through the DOT, to SMART, and then SMART administers the municipal credit program. And they have an agreement that they offer to the local government CVTs on the slide if it's up there yet. And that the CVTs have a variety of options. So for example, if community is providing its own service, they can provide the information to SMART and receive the reimbursement. And that was where Kristen did yeoman's work over the last month or so in clearing up about a 3 to 4 year backlog in some municipal cases. It was a real hot mess. But that's part of what we're gonna avoid with your support of this item. So what happens is that the local communities look at the agreement and they have check boxes. Do we check the box of we're gonna provide the service and we want the resources? Or if they're in an area which, assuming that the board approves the overarching agreement and People's Express comes in, we now have an operator that these communities can assign their municipal credits directly to the operations, which is where we get the credit back in the other agreement that we just reviewed. And so it's a daisy chain of distribution. It goes from SMART to the local government. The local government can choose to check a box to assign it to the operator. What we as the county want to do, and I think that the commissioner will appreciate this, is we want those funds to be providing the public transit that we're facilitating. And so what this interlocal agreement is us reaching out to these communities who we have talked through this in great detail, that they would be, all 7 of them, willing to check the box, that they will forego themselves collecting the municipal credit and that they would assign that directly to People's Express. And so this is, and I want to say merely, but it is importantly an administrative item that enables us, the county, to enter into an interlocal agreement with these 7 CVTs that will enable and require them to assign their municipal credit to People's Express. And so that's kind of where it is. One of the advantages to the local government units is by checking the box, it puts People's Express in the role of having to fill out the detail that SMART requires for the reimbursement. So there is administrative streamlining that will occur. And that, again, the prior item is the agreement will go through the end of 2025. So this isn't something that we're gonna have to keep revisiting. It enables for this administrative processing, assuming that the service is well delivered. I see no reason why it wouldn't be, that this would enable us to allow for those state funds to follow with the county in support of the service provider that's moving the people in this part of our community. Thank you. Any questions?
Well done. Starting with Commissioner Johnson.
I'm not sure if it's a question or a comment, but I appreciate if I'm assuming correctly, that the terms of this and the previous item are concurrent with the other OPC Woda Noda, so that everything is up at the same time at the end of 2025.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Commissioner Wyper.
And part of, thank you, Kristen, she really worked with all the communities to get the past credit, smart credit. And part of that helps with the bad sense sometimes that SMART has, right? The communities, they just have this negative thing about SMART. And part of it is for that bureaucracy, right? That communities weren't getting their credits or getting their money on time. Some were years back, right? And so part of that is just that sour taste. And so it turned out it got cleaned up and it's gonna work out better here. And so that might help with the attitude about, hey, this isn't so bad.
Commissioner Woodward.
No, I think this model is great. Walled Lake by itself trying to get its municipal credits is a little fish trying to fight a big shark. Oakland County coming to get the municipal credits entitled for Oakland County, we come in with a big stick. And we sit on the board of SMART, so it helps, I mean, that probably helps to move things along to get done. So to take off that administrative headache and from a planning perspective, and I mean, if there's I don't understand why there's a delay because the money comes in and the money goes out. Shouldn't just go out. I think this is a great model that probably can be replicated in for the other agreements and just streamline the administrative headache, knowing that the community is going to get their credit and they don't have to worry about when the money gets transferred. Oakland County will assume that duty and responsibility. So, great job.
Nice. Grandfather would say you walk quietly and carry a big stick. So that is the motivation there. All right, well, if there are no other comments or questions, we'll go ahead and prompt the vote on 7D. Or 7.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd just like to say, as somebody who's been talking transit for 25 years, I'm really happy with the pace at which you're making this happen. It's clear there's a commitment, it's clear that you're working in the depths with local communities, and I'm just really happy with how this is all going. You know, it hasn't even been a year, well, I guess almost a year since the millage passed.
Past
Was it
November.
August? Oh, was it November?
Yeah.
Okay,
Get
so
the
not
money
even a
till
year.
February.
I know we were talking about doing it in August.
She's rounding up.
That's true.
My point is, it's been pretty quick, and yet there's a lot of progress, and I appreciate that.
Yes. And Commissioner Markham had us all on bated breath before we hit submit on our vote buttons.
I did it, yes, I just didn't hit save.
Oh, sorry.
Mine's in, right?
Oh, that's right. Mine's in there now. Sorry, I didn't see it.
9 yeas, 0 nays.
9 yeas,
Thank
0
you.
nays.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you all.
Thank you for coming
work.
from People's Express.
Yeah, no
Thank you.
problem.
Right, and that takes us to item 8. Okay, yes, item 7E, which is the approval and acceptance of assignment of purchase agreement to purchase and lease certain property in the city of Pontiac. Can I get a motion to?
Discussion only.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's a discussion, just a discussion, merely a discussion. I'd like to invite
That's approval.
Sean on up to the front. Not sure if
Approval.
Andy's coming up.
Oh, this is just discussion?
Yes.
Sorry, because it says approval.
Because we'll be,
So,
The vote is.
yeah, so if I can, Madam Chair, just they kind of lead into this. So, this has been like a moving target as we've talked before. I mean, a lot of discussions. We are having a special meeting tomorrow to take action on this. I wanted to make sure that EDI had the opportunity to dig into the policy conversations. And so I asked staff, through the chair, to have this discussion. These are the draft versions. There might be a tweak or something that happens in the next little bit because we're trying to land this plane and the executive office can talk about that. But I thought it was appropriate to have a discussion here, knowing that another discussion's happening tomorrow. That ultimately that we're trying to get this resolved tomorrow at the special board meeting, so that's why this is here.
Understood. Did you have a question?
Of course I do.
Yes, please.
Along those lines, I guess. So what will we be discussing tomorrow? Will there be more information than just here that's presented tomorrow for the board to discuss as a committee of the whole, or is this the only thing we're discussing tomorrow?
This and ideally a subsequent memorandum of agreement.
Okay.
Which is gonna lead to this conversation.
Yeah. I'll
Yeah.
let them make their opening remarks before I ask more questions. Thank you.
Yes, so let me just, if I could, Madam Chair, just kind of make sure everybody has all the information that they should have at this point in time. So what you should have obviously is a resolution for this project. So that's first and foremost. In addition to the resolution, the assignment of the purchase agreement. So that is what we would be asking for the vote for. The Farbman Group technically owns that right now, and there would be an assignment to Oakland County as we're going through this period. There's a purchase agreement that is attached to that assignment. And in addition, there are other exhibits outlining the different properties that have been identified in the resolution that you should have. And then there's also 2 amendments that you should have that are important to point out too. The first amendment took the inspection period from the 17th to the 24th, and then the second amendment that was fully executed took the inspection period from the 24th to the 31st. The closing date has not moved, that still remains at August 17th. Is that correct? I just want to make sure I've got all those.
I think it's August 16th.
August 16th. So that is everything in there. And then you also received 2 appraisals, one from IRR, and the other appraisal was from Newmark Valuation. So that's what you have in front of you, or you should have. I just wanted to just kind of take a step back, because I know we started this process here with this committee back in May. But this process was really started back in February. And an exploration, what I would call phase 1, where some of the key principals came together and said, can this be possible? Is this something that we can do? And so we sat down with the mayor of Pontiac, the chairman of the board, and our county executive met to see if this was something that could happen. We then had a closed session here early May to move forward with engaging in a letter of intent. A letter of intent. And then we met, I forget the date, I think it may have been May 24th, where then we moved forward with an offer at that point in time. So I just want to kind of set the stage for what has transpired. But I also want to just kind of touch base from the Coulter administration of why this project, and just try to hit that point. And it's really the convergence of 4 different pieces that I think is really important, because we're asking you to do a big task here and approve this purchase agreement. But this is just the start of other things to follow with this purchase agreement as well. And the first has to do with operational efficiency. We would not move forward if it didn't make good government sense to move forward. When I talk about operational efficiency, what I'm talking about is we have a study that has told us that over the next 10 years, there needs to be a significant investment in capital improvements across our properties and facilities that Oakland County owns. This has been avoided for many years, and this administration needs to take that on. So part of operational efficiency is identifying, is there a piece of property in which we can consolidate some of our facilities and move individuals, employees into one building. So we do have some options that we've been reviewing. And I would ask to be able to preserve, not naming those buildings in respect for our employees in regards to communicating. But we're identifying 3 buildings that we would move employees out of and into 31 East Judson. And that would provide a significant cost avoidance in capital investment. So that's one of the key reasons this Coulter administration was looking at and looking what's in front of us. The second one has to do with the Economic Outlook report, which continues to guide our thinking in economic development. And I know I've been in front of this group, and I'm anxious to get back in front of this group in the next 60 days to kind of update you on the strategic plan that we set in motion back in 2020. But one of the things that has guided our thinking is this report called the Average Annual 3-Person Equivalent Household Income in Oakland County, which identifies what they call PUMA regions, which is, I just want to make sure I get the PUMA correctly. It stands for Public Use Micro Data Areas, and we have 8 of them across Oakland County. And 4 of them are not only the top in the county, but they're top in the state of Michigan. But one that continues to lag behind is the city of Pontiac, our county seat. And so this administration early on in 2020 moved forward with what we call key performance indicators, making sure that not only qualitatively we're getting feedback, but quantitatively we're managing this government the right way. And there's a thing that we talk about calling turning the curve. And when I look at this chart and I look at where Pontiac is on this chart, which is dead last, it's about turning the curve because there's been 30 years of disinvestment in Pontiac. So can we take one issue that we have, which is a capital investment, and also try to answer another question at the same time, which is a disinvestment in our county seat? And the answer is yes, and this project presents the opportunity to address that issue at the same time. This investment will go a long way of creating some tech corridors and hubs and attracting small businesses to this downtown area. We've seen this down in Detroit, just down the road, and what can be done when an investment takes place like this. The third thing is the convergence of the availability of resources. No time in the past 20 years, and probably no time in the next 20 years, is there the availability of funding for us to do the right thing. Not only have we been successful, and to the efforts of a few people around this table of securing an enhancement grant from the state of Michigan for $50 million. We also have ARPA funding that we would like to designate $10 million as well for this project. Now that won't cover the full expenses of what we're looking at, but we are working with the Whitmer administration in regards to a brownfield transformational grant, a community revitalization grant, and a federal reconnect grant that could yield anywhere from $30 to $60 million in additional grant funding for this investment. All of that is not counting private development that is interested in being part of this and taking place with Oakland County taking the lead. And the last thing is really every administration, it has its crossroads and has its choices to make. Our administration has prided itself anytime we went in front of the rating agencies, whether that has been S&P or Moody's. And part of our conversation is not just to talk about the fiscal soundness of this county, which we received a AAA rating all 5 times we went in front, the Coulter administration. But part of what they're recognizing too is that this administration doesn't kick the can down the road. Where we take problems on head on, whether it's the Raffaelli case and settling that case and moving on, whether it is addressing the needs of our community during COVID, where we spent over $110 million with small businesses, not only small businesses, but making sure the impact to our CVTs was, we tried to take some of that impact away from them as well and made investments there. We've also continued to address settling claims, but also just taking these issues head on. And part of this is taking this issue of making sure that we do the right investments in our facilities and address the capital improvement as we go forward. So it's the convergence of those four things that are coming together. And we really haven't articulated that, but I tried to put myself in your shoes. I used to be on the school board for 14 years. I know what it's like to have big things thrown in front of you with not a lot of time to sink and digest the information. But I've spent over 200 hours on this. This is good government. This is the right thing to do. This is our crossroad right now. And this is an opportunity to do something from a legacy perspective. So I will entertain any questions. Thank you.
Excellent. My peripheral says Commissioner Johnson, followed by Commissioner Spiz. And then just use the buttons, folks, it'll help me stay in order.
I have thousands of questions, but first just a compliment. I did get your email and I am tickled pink that not only does this include the 4 random lot parcels that I was curious about, but also parcel number 8. Which I think is really, really convenient for that area and just having that continuity. So yeah, I'm just tickled.
Do you wanna respond to any of that we shared? You just validated that the X's on your graph were.
Very excited about that as well.
Thanks.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson, followed by Commissioner Spiz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for going through the whys, because that was one of my questions. Why? The big why, you kind of outlined that, but as you know, I like to get into the weeds a lot more, especially when we're looking to spend this kind of money.
Let me get my weed whacker.
Get your weed whacker. Because I can respect the consolidation. I know, and I can respect not wanting to put that out there publicly right now for employee purposes and other things, and from a cost avoidance, but I'd like to see the numbers.
I mean, the numbers of.
What are we expecting to avoid? And, are we expecting from a cost avoidance perspective to, is it 50 million, 80 million, 10 million?
30 to 54 million.
30 to 54 million.
In cost avoidance.
Okay. And you'll be willing to share that detail with me, Jim?
Well, we have an independent report that have assessed our buildings in regards to the improvements that need to be done in the next 10 years.
And those 3 buildings would make up that 30 to 54 is what you're telling me. Yeah, 'cause I'm aware of the independent review. And that's kind of where I'm going, is I know we have this other piece out there from a capital improvement plan that we as a county have to do. And I'm trying to get my arms around, how does this fit into that? How does this benefit that? How does this help us avoid any certain cost per se?
Right,
which is what I'm trying to understand, which I don't have a good picture of yet. That's what's difficult for me. I'm actually glad to hear you say because Pontiac is lagging behind and it has been lagging on for some time. So it's good to hear that you're trying to figure out ways and avenues to help boost that part of our county up. So that's good to hear. What I also like to see, if you have it, I'm sure you have some studies, some numbers somewhere about attracting small businesses. You mentioned Detroit, what they've done. What's our estimate there? Are we expecting over the next 5 years, 10 years? Is there a growth plan over that duration of time we're expecting? I'm not gonna hold your feet to the fire because I know it's just a forecast and prediction, right? But you need to have some kind of that information to sell some of us on this project personally, right? So what are we expecting to bring in? We're gonna put another $50 million worth of business, $1 billion worth of business into Pontiac because of this project. That's our plan over that 10-year period. Something like that is what I'm kind of reaching for. You may not have the answers now, but something I'm really interested in understanding to get me more in line with this project. Because right now, as I was from day one, as you guys all know, I thought we paid too much. I thought we'd done this, but I know we're continuing to move down this road, but I just need more information. That's really my point.
Thank you.
Yes, we concur. Mr. Miller, Commissioner Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few questions. First of all, this is just for the purchase, right? Not for construction or demo?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. But I think it's important to understand, the purchase is the beginning of other things.
Right, yeah, I know that.
We would have to
Just
come
wanna make sure,
back to this group for appropriations.
Just want to make sure. And then the memorandum between Oakland and City of Pontiac, what is that?
The memorandum of agreement is really a way for us to articulate and protect our investment. And it's a way for us to work with the city of Pontiac to try to understand what our responsibilities will be, what their responsibilities will be. So we've outlined our responsibilities and their responsibilities. I gave an example last week, which was one of the things in there is we could not move forward with a demolition, with taking over this lease without the extinguishing of a current lien that stands against it and a debt obligation. So we can't move forward until that's done. We wanna say what we've said in that memorandum of agreement is you have 30 days within receiving the $5 million that you received in an enhancement grant from the state of Michigan to extinguish that debt. And once that debt's extinguished, then we have within 24 months, it is our responsibility to move forward with the demolition project.
Okay.
So kind of tie-barring those actions together is what we're doing. That's one thing that we've said. We've talked about, there's been some questions about some vacant parcels that are not contiguous with this property, that are some other vacant properties that there's been some questions of whether they should be part of the purchase agreement or not. We've asked in the memorandum of agreement that they settle and release themselves of any and all claims from Oakland County as we come in to buy this, that we don't continue to drag on any disputes about those vacant lots. So that was another one. And then the other one had to do with a fee simple title conveyance in regards to where the parking garage is gonna go and other green space that is around 51-111 and 31 East Judson Building. So that is the piece that we're working. We understand, and I think the main principles as we've sat down with Pontiac from the beginning, have always talked about making sure that there's a public use space and green space for the city of Pontiac and making sure. And so we're still working through those details with them. We envision that space being north, what would be north of, and I don't know if I have enough here, and I apologize if I don't, I clearly don't, but we'll pass these out. This may give a little sense of the property. This was a study that was done by Rich and Associates, right, as part of this project. Sorry. Sure. That's a bad pass. Third string. So this isn't to suggest exactly where the parking will go. This is just a preliminary and just to give us some conceptual ideas. We do not wanna tie a private developer's hands in regards to exactly where it would go, but it outlines. The green that's there is the footprint of the current Phoenix parking structure. Minus the little red space that you see below it, which would be Saginaw Street, right? So it currently covers that. And then Orchard Lake Road, which is Old State Highway 59, I think it says. It runs underneath it right now.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about from a green space, you can see site one, option one was putting a parking garage, but we can only look at, I think, 800 spaces, I think, in this first one.
In the first one.
Yeah, and then site two, option one, talks about 1,794, close to 1,800 spaces, and that would run along Water Street. And then site two, option two, which is the third page, it runs more north and south, and that is between Orchard Lake and Water Street. But this just is for us to kind of get an understanding as we move through this MOA of what kind of green space are we talking for here? Because we really believe that it's important for the residents of Pontiac to have a public use space as part of this process too. So those are some of the responsibilities
Oh,
in the
great.
MOA.
So then like the construction contracts, are they going through the city of Pontiac or are they gonna go through?
It would be the intention, I mean, I can't speak for that public use space, right?
The buildings,
But in
yeah,
regards to the
yeah.
parking garage and in regards to the renovations, in regards to the parking garage and whether that's a multi-use building or just a parking garage, we will look to put out an RFP. And we will look out to put an RFP out to the private developers, assuming all of this goes through and it's day one, August 17th. We're gonna hit the ground running and start to look for private developers to come in and give us an idea on this space.
So that'll go through our purchasing.
That will go through Oakland County's purchasing.
And then the
But you
last,
still have to go through the ordinances of the city.
That's correct. I mean, but we would go through in any of the, we would work with the city and you know, closely in regards to anything that we would be speccing out. So
the last question I have is, so the roads in and around Pontiac are always the best. So how, is there some plan to work with Pontiac to fix those roads so when we bring businesses
are
in?
you saying that facetiously? I just wanna.
Well, we've driven the roads, right? And I've talked to some of the,
So I mean, the federal Reconnect grant as well as the Brownfield Transformational Project, those would be eligible expenses that in regards to the construction. The going forward repair and maintenance, that is something that we outlined in the memorandum of agreement that would be their responsibility. Of course, it's not the county's.
because as we know, like businesses don't like to go to places where their
Yeah.
road is not that greatest, right?
Yeah, so
We've seen it everywhere.
we're looking at the portion of the road that's Saginaw and then obviously the Orchard Lake Road.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, we have a full bench of folks ready to ask you questions, Sean. So we're gonna start with Markham. I'll skip me. Start with Markham, followed by Rahman, followed by Spiz, followed by Johnson.
Okay. I just wanna understand how the money flows a little bit. So, the third, be it further resolved in the resolution, sorry.
Somebody
It
after
says-
my hard on details.
It says that we will reimburse the general fund at a later date for these appropriations with revenue, the 50 million from the state and 10 million in ARPA. So we're going to front the money,
Yeah, we have to
basically out of the general
close,
fund to close.
we would have to close and so that enhancement grant hasn't come in and we don't expect that to come in until after October 1st.
Okay, so today we're talking about 20 million, or are we talking about all of it?
We would have our closing costs as well as the 19.2.
So we're not talking about the other 50 million right now, we're just talking, okay. I think that was really my only question. It's a little murky in here as to how we get reimbursed and all that, but I think I see it now, so, okay.
We wanna maintain flexibility, and to that point, I just wanna point
Right.
out, there is a clause in here, that speaks about bonding.
Right.
And so it's important for that clause to be in there. We worked closely with our CFO, Kyle Jen, and he worked with our bonding attorneys to make sure that we have the right language. It's important if this resolution gets passed, if ever we wanted to use bonding, we don't have to do it for sure, but this clause needs to be in here and it needs to be written this way.
Okay. So we're putting $10 million of ARPA funding in it as a reimbursement to our general fund.
Yes,
Where's the other 10 million come from?
it would come from the fund balance temporarily
Okay.
until that enhancement grant comes in.
Gotcha. Okay, that was all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Finance Chair. Next is Commissioner Rahman.
Thank you. Sorry if you covered this before, or maybe I just missed it. What did you say the construction and demolition costs are anticipated to be?
The demolition of the Phoenix parking garage is 12 million.
And then the improvement costs, once you, property aside, once you buy the building, obviously enhancing it and getting it up to where it needs to be, what are we anticipating in terms of?
So that is a phase two. You're talking about the renovation of 31 East Judson.
Sure.
Yeah, we're talking $40 million.
So we're saying even with the acquisition of the property, the demolition, the remodeling, all of that all in, we're still looking to save 30 to 54 million from our CIP?
From a cost avoidance perspective.
Cost avoidance,
Yes.
even with all of that?
Yes.
Okay. And then the other question is, on final disposition of the properties that we would be vacating, do we have an idea of what's coming back to us from that? I'd imagine maybe not so much, but.
So the three buildings that we are identifying the three buildings that we have identified in one of the options, and this isn't for sure that we would go forward, but there is a possibility to raise $10 million from the sale of those buildings.
And that's collectively from all of them?
Yeah, one of them would be a potential to be demolished because of its age. It's a significant building that creates a significant cost to the county.
And so demolition would be our cost then as well,
That's
to
right.
demolish it? And that would add to the final total then as well?
Well, it'd be part of a capital improvement plan that was moved forward, yes.
Thank you. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rahman. Commissioner Spence, followed by Commissioner Johnson.
Oh, thank you, man. I just wanted to follow up on one of those questions. You said even with the 12 million in demo and the 40 million in renovation, we would still save 30 to 54 million?
So we would avoid costs of 30 to 50 million.
So we would avoid the cost, but it doesn't, not above and beyond
it's-
that.
I wanna be technically correct since I have finance people in the room. It's not a savings if it's not in the budget, right? We haven't gone forward and done any bonding against any of these capital improvement plans right now. So it is a cost that is coming, so that's why I'm phrasing it as a cost avoidance.
Yeah, and I think I understand what
Yeah.
you're saying, but I'm not sure the way Commissioner Rahman phrased it was clear to everybody because it confused me a little bit. So we still have those costs. And the cost avoidance, and I'm not a finance guy directly either, but will offset those costs.
Yeah, right.
It's not above and beyond.
Right.
So it's not gonna be a $100 million
Right.
cost avoidance that would cover some of that cost. Okay. All right. My other question is, one of the buildings, and I don't remember which one, also has current leases in it, right? And I think it brings in $1.8 million a year in fees, if I read that.
Ottawa Tower 1.
Yeah, Ottawa Tower 1. There were gonna be fees to manage that for a while, we're gonna pay a firm, something like if I read these correctly. So going back to my business case question, what is, because when you buy a piece of property, if it's got leases in it, you're looking at it from a business perspective. Does it pay for itself over a certain period of time? Because I don't know the maintenance costs of the building, all these other things that are not in here, right? What's the business plan just from that unit? And I know there's a long-term options, I'm gonna say, that we're either gonna sell it off, do something else with it, blah, blah, blah. But for the meantime, we're gonna have to maintain it.
Yeah, so day one, right, so day one would be August 17th. Day one, we would have the Farbman Group manage and operate those buildings. And so the buildings, what I'm talking about is Ottawa Tower 1, which we have leases. The predominant amount of leases in there is the state of Michigan, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. They would also manage Ottawa Tower 2 and the Phoenix parking garage as well. I don't know if you wanna speak to any specifics on Ottawa Tower 1 and the revenue minus the expenses currently.
Yeah, and you hit the top line revenue on that, it's about 1.8 million. Between the properties, we've taken a look at what the cost could be to run for a year. With the surplus from Ottawa 1, the costs of the Phoenix Center and Ottawa 2, you could have a need to inject about $250,000 in over the course of the year. That's what we think is the high end, assuming no unknown capital costs occur.
That's above the 1.8.
Yeah, so you get the 1.8 from the one, that actually, Ottawa 1 creates a surplus.
Yeah.
The Phoenix Center has minimal cost to maintain it. Currently it has very little. And then you've got Ottawa 2, which is maintaining a vacant building, so there's some utilities.
So overall, on all three properties,
Yeah.
or all the properties, because we're three, it's gonna cost $250,000.
Yeah, we think
That's the high end.
We think that's a high end.
Okay, thank you.
$250,000.
All set, Mr. Spence?
I'm all set for now.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, I've just got thousands of questions, but the two that I'll ask, Alright, so the green space deal with Pontiac, I don't wanna handicap us in the future, right? Because I'm thinking that we're doing this for a next 5 or 6 decades reason, not a right now reason. And we have a substantial capital cost to our campus right now. It's astronomical when I'm thinking 5, 6 decades out. So in my mind, the open space, the green space, like is this a perpetual promise that we're making to the city of Pontiac that we're going to have a lot of open space? Or is that like reserved for future use?
I think the conversation that we're having is again, north of Orchard Lake, south of Water Street, excuse me. In between the loop, the green space that would be created from the demolition there is where we're talking about green space. But what we don't wanna do is we don't wanna handicap any private developers that say, hey, the best place for us to come in and put this parking garage that might have commercial building, office space on the first floor or retail, as well as a parking garage, as well as, housing on top, which is all a possibility. We don't know whether that will happen or not, we'll have to see. But we don't wanna handicap and say, hey, you only have this space to work with. We want them to take a look at the whole space. We do understand that that's a need for Pontiac, and we believe in that as well, that there does need to be some green space and public use space down there.
Sure, but I guess are we promising them a public park forever on our property where we could, if we needed to, build 2 more buildings to move more staff down there?
Yeah, the conveyance hasn't gone through, so it's not necessarily our property.
Sure.
So those are still negotiations that are taking place. But what's important to know is that this agreement is somewhat tie-barred. I mean, they're gonna have to work with us before the closing date to get a fully executed MOA, and I think that's outlined in one of the therefore be it resolves, where it talks about that the chairperson can execute the attached assignment of purchase agreement upon receiving a fully executed memorandum of agreement for the Pontiac redevelopment project between the County of Oakland and the City of Pontiac prior to the closing date. So we're still working through that. The city council met last night. I'm very optimistic based upon the conversations that were shared with me, that could be shared from a closed session, in regards to, we're close, but the principals are gonna have to continue to sit down and hammer out some more details.
Sure. My second question has to do with parking. I don't know how to phrase this. I guess how much, in the post-COVID world, I feel like office parking has changed a lot and it's very vogue right now for cities to abolish their parking minimums because they don't make a whole lot of sense. They were built like before the COVID, so like Pontiac still has a pre-COVID parking minimum. How much does that hurt us?
Well, here's what I would say is, I know that the city of Pontiac recently reached out to our economic development to help them with their master plan, zoning and all of the rules that come with that. So I think that they recognize that there needs to be some changes as well, but I can't answer that specific question here right now. I do know that as we look, and the reason that we can take a look at 3 buildings is because we recognize in a post-COVID world, we all went through this pilot project in 2020 and 21 and 22 about working from home and can it be done, and we found in many cases with the right parameters it can be very, very efficient, but we still need to have that interaction. So that's allowing us to consolidate 3 buildings. If we still took the old premise, we would need both buildings in order to put all the people that we currently have.
Cool, thanks.
Commissioner Miller?
Yeah, so this is through you, Commissioner Johnson, and are you saying like have less parking spaces?
Oh, yeah.
Cause I would just say like, I would do a study on that, cause just when I was in Austin talking to them, they used to have requirements, they got rid of them. Now, for them to even build more parking, cause they got built up so much, it would cost them, they said it was $5,000 a month before for have a parking spot like for that space. Now it's $100,000 because what property costs in Austin now. So I would like do a study on that before getting rid of any. Cause if we're talking about building up Pontiac, more buildings, more parking, we could potentially pigeonhole
A
ourselves.
study definitely needs to be done. It will be part of an RFP to a private developer. That parking study be part of the project.
Yeah, we just because I just had this conversation with one of the business owners there.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Commissioner Markham?
Just on that parking question, going up and not out, we wanna protect the green space and all of that, so. However many parking spaces it is, going up is better than going out, so.
Anything further from the body? Yes, Commissioner Woodward.
Thank you. And I think, all great questions around here, and I am extremely excited about this project. I think the economic and transformational impact that the potential of this project, at the same time, the reconfiguring of the loop, opening up Saginaw, the spin-off economic opportunities along that is truly tremendous. Coupled with moving somewhere between 400, 600 county employees to downtown Pontiac, daytime traffic that has the potential to spill out into the area, additional economic opportunity, and activating the southern portion of the downtown area is truly remarkable. I think the administration has done a tremendous job. I just want to recap kind of some of the things that, from a policy perspective, that we're required to do. We mentioned the process of entering a letter of intent, purchase agreement, and per our policy, the two appraisals that are required, as well as environmental studies. So can you just mention the two appraisals came in at?
19.9 and 19.6.
Okay. And the environmental study of the property was, what was the firm that did the environmental study?
That's AKT, excuse me, AKT Environment.
AKT. And all that stuff, commissioners can, pour through. I just want to make that those two things are required prior to us moving forward and releasing the funds and completing the final purchase of any property. It should also be noted that something of this magnitude hasn't been done in my entire 20+ years on the commission, and I think the awesome nature of it. And the excitement that's around it. Oakland County has never received a grant of $50 million. Over the last 20 years, we haven't received $50 million of a grant of this magnitude, which also shows that there's statewide interest in revitalizing and being part of the economic renaissance of not only our county seat, but by a city that has been struck with a lot of disinvestment for generations. And so I think this is really exciting. And it's mostly put that on the record if there's any questions, and make sure that everyone has all the documentation that you need. I will come back to the memorandum of agreement. The other, and Sean, I think, did a good job talking about it, but I've said this to anyone who ask. It is absolutely essential now to protect this a significant, albeit one of the largest capital investments as a county that we're making, to be in a position to demolish the Phoenix Center. That we are in effect purchasing the buildings, buying out the lease. There was additional grant of $5 million to the city of Pontiac to help, the goal to help offset the lien that's on that. We have to have the lien gone so that we can demolish it. We're assuming the responsibility in the short term of the maintenance, insurance, and then we've got to also figure out a short term, where do the people who are parking in it are gonna park while this comes down, because we've got to get this albatross out of the way before we can build the next thing. So addressing that and being in a position to ensure all of that happens on a timeline that's necessary to fully activate the site and move, move positions and renovate the buildings, et cetera, have to happen in a sequence. And it is an absolute must thing. And I know many of you have mentioned to me and share that's, we need to be in a position to tear down the Phoenix Center to be able to build additional parking, to activate these sites, to complete all of this. And continuing working with the city as they're going through their process to figure out what that looks like. This truly is gonna be a partnership, almost like no other, with our county seat. And I just think it charts a future that is, the prosperity that I believe that will follow this is gonna be amazing for our county, for this area, and will be a model for how we revitalize areas around the state.
Well, thank you for that, Chairman, giving us the big picture. Are there any other comments or questions on this? Otherwise, we are just going to move on into our next item on the agenda because this is just for info.
Right. Yeah, so if I could just, on that, so the plan tomorrow, at the board meeting tomorrow, and all commissioners, I believe, were sent, staff made sure that all commissioners got this information. So this is the item that we're taking up, the only item that we're taking up tomorrow. Is the purchase agreement to move forward. And if there's any additional information or any modifications, you're all gonna be the experts that dug in the deep, as would be expected for EDI. We'll have an opportunity to bring those to light, but working with the executive to land this plane tomorrow morning.
Thank you. I see Commissioner Miller has a question.
If there's any changes in between now and tomorrow morning, can you have them not changed on the information, but sent to us directly so we know there's changes?
Yes.
With the text.
With clearly identified what that is.
Yes,
Just
please.
send you something.
Thank you.
Awesome. What a great body of thinkers, and I feel like it's very comprehensive what we were able to discuss today. Thank you, Sean and Andy, for your time this morning. That takes us right into our second public comment, which is 3 minutes maximum per speaker on any topic. Is there anyone here from the public who'd like to address the committee? Seeing none, is there any other business to come before us?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes,
Just
Mr.
two
Miller.
things I wanna highlight, there's a few more, but two things I wanna highlight from NACO was the awards we got for the invasive spongy moth prevention and Oxford Family Local Business.
Good.
They weren't, yeah, we got, there was a few more awards, but those were the two, like,
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, pictures?
I'm just looking for the tag on
It
social.
wasn't one that was picked for the top, but it was one that we got an award for, cause they just take the category, but we did get an award for it. Just wanted to let you know.
Excellent. Well, we'll all be happy to share that out as soon as we see it in our feeds. And I think that concludes all other business. All right, well, with that, we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Ooh, that was loud. That was loud.
A little wet.
All right, we're gonna take a 5-minute break before finance starts.
Yeah, we leave this meeting where.
5 minutes, we'll be back to start this meeting.
Gotta find my, where do I get off of this here?
Thank you,
This
Connie.
one.
Could we without Jeff?
Yeah, leave meeting. Leave meeting. Yes, we want to leave.